everybody. Welcome to Lifehacker, or the Lifehacker podcast. I'm Adam Dotchis, and this here is Whitson Gordon. And back there behind us, we have Alan Henry. Adam Pash is in New York this week, so we're taking the lead again. And we've got a lot to talk about today, so let's just get to it. Well, last week, the big news stories were all to do with Apple for the most part.
Apple related.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about some other stuff, too, but we should at least get started.
The Apple stuff was pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
For anyone who uses an iPhone, which is a lot of people, you should be pretty excited for.
It was one of the first Apple events, I think, in a long time where, I don't know, personally, I felt like it was actually pretty good. They didn't waste a lot of time on stupid stuff.
I agree. I did feel like it went really long, but at the same time, it was the first time... the iOS 5 announcement I didn't think was all that great. It was all kind of stuff we knew was coming. And it was
You mean iOS 6?
No, I'm saying iOS 5 last year wasn't really that exciting because it was all like, oh, these are the features of Android we've been waiting to, like, I don't want to say, like, copy, but, like, you know, notification center or whatever, and there wasn't anything that was, like, new or particularly awesome about it, I felt like. It was just like, oh, awesome, these are all the things I was missing, and now I'm happy. Whereas with iOS 6, I got kind of wowed again, like one expects to be wowed by Apple, like, oh, that's a really cool idea, or like, oh, I didn't think of implementing that feature that way. So it was a pretty exciting announcement.
Yeah, well, so for the people who have been living under a rock, we got iOS 6, the next version of Apple's mobile operating system.
It got announced. It's not coming till the fall.
We have a beta. It's right here. I have it on this. So we got that. We got updates across the entire mobile line almost. They updated the MacBook Pros and the MacBooks.
Oh, I see. The laptop line. Yeah, they updated almost all of the laptops and the Mac Pro, but secretly they didn't tell us about that. But it was a very minor update. It was very disappointing. But the new MacBook Pros look pretty great. And they added almost air-thin MacBook Pro with a Retina display. Which is kind of crazy, and... It's really crazy. What's really crazy about it, though, is the cost isn't that... It's not that high. Compared to... It's a lot, it's a lot, but it's not
less... I mean, it's not like it's...
You can buy...
It makes sense.
You can buy a slightly less powerful MacBook Pro for the same price, but it's not... The difference in power is pretty negligible for a lot of people. It makes, for people who were buying MacBook Pros before, you could easily get this new MacBook Pro with the Retina display and probably not miss a ton.
Yeah, it's not like when the MacBook Air was announced with
and it was
flash
like
memory.
So much money. Yeah, and it was like, okay, well, now only like the super rich Apple users can buy this one. It's actually like a quote, affordable laptop for people who would be buying a MacBook Pro anyway. So that's pretty cool. But the really exciting stuff was iOS 6 and Mountain Lion.
Yeah, they added some new stuff to Mountain Lion. They're actually like some of the little features. I mean, there's something called Power Nap, which is being added to the latest MacBook Pro, the Retina one, and the second generation MacBook Airs, which I was actually kind of confused about this initially, but it means the ones that were released, the ones that have the unibody, the newer unibody, and the
not the really old MacBook Airs that no one remembers.
Yeah, the generation people have been buying. So if you bought a MacBook Air that wasn't one of the overpriced
$1 billion
ones, then you're good. The ones that look like this thing. But Power Nap, what it does is it checks your email and does other network operations while your computer's asleep. So it's updated kind of like your phone's updated. And supposedly it doesn't.
How did I miss this?
I don't know.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but. Well, Alan, what?
No, I was just saying that is really
silent
cool.
agreement.
Sorry, Alan. What do you think about all this stuff we've been going on about it?
I mean, it's all really cool. I agree that the price point of the new MacBook Pros is something that a lot of people have been taking out of control. The super high end one is like $3,700 or something like that, but that's the one that no one would buy.
Yeah.
So the whole price thing when it comes to Apple laptops has always been kind of a sticking point for some people, but these ones are actually remarkably affordable.
That said, the prices are still high on MacBook Pros, period.
But for what it is.
By comparison.
But by comparison, the new MacBook Pro isn't as crazy expensive as we expected compared to the regular MacBook Pros.
Yeah, and another thing, they lowered the price on the MacBook Airs, the higher end ones, I guess. It still starts at $1,000, but you can the next step up.
But
is
so did the
just
white
$100
MacBook.
More. Yeah, no, but my point being, over time we should see this laptop kind of go down once the R&D costs go down.
Yeah.
And they start expanding the line and so on. I look forward to when they are able to do like a 13-inch and able to do smaller ones like this. But right now the graphics card issue, I'm sure, is preventing them.
I'm sure.
It's always been a problem for the 13-inch ones.
So Mountain Lion had some cool stuff. The Macs had some cool stuff. But really what was cool about this was iOS 6, which has a number of cool new features. At the top of my list, easily, the new Maps app and built-in turn-by-turn navigation, which we like Waze for the iPhone and whatever, but it's just, for me, it never came close enough to the awesomeness that was Google Maps on Android. And I think that Apple's new app will, because A, Apple makes good stuff, and B, we were talking about this last time, they will immediately have so many users that the traffic, the traffic info is going to be really good and up to date pretty much instantly, because everyone is going to start using this as soon as they get the update. We have FaceTime over 3G now, which is awesome. We have this. My personal favorite feature was this new Passbook thing. I may not end up using it, but I do think that it was.
It's a neat idea.
I liked it because it was their kind of like clever new thing of the year. It was for those of you that don't know, it's essentially one app in which you can combine all of your airline tickets or movie tickets or Starbucks gift cards, anything that you can scan with a barcode, and it combines it all into one app, which is cool. Yeah. We've kind of seen that before. But what's different about this, rather than like just the loyalty card apps we've seen, is that these are all companies that are already have their own apps for this. So it's not like you're going to go into a store and try to use a Passbook code and they're going to be like, I don't know how to scan your iPhone, because they're working with people who have already been doing this. So Starbucks is already has gift cards on their own app, and they already know how to scan an iPhone. So if you take in a Passbook gift card, they're going to know how to use it. Same with airlines and movie theaters and whatever. So that's like really nice that they're only doing it in places where it's actually going to work, and you're not running into a bunch of confused cashiers. The other really cool thing is that it's going to offer you a push notification every time you walk into a place where you can use one of your gift cards. So if you walk into a Starbucks and you have Starbucks balance on your Passbook,
that's pretty nice.
It's going to be like, yo dog, use this, which is awesome.
That sounds like exactly what it will say.
Siri is going to say it, actually. They're recording her right now saying yo dog. Yeah. So, and these are things that just Apple's implemented really well, and they're not carbon copies of something we've seen on other systems, at least built into the OS. And so I just think that, and they've done, in typical Apple fashion, they've done it in a way that's so easy to use and just so well thought out that I'm much more excited about this than I was about iOS 5.
Yeah, the problem being that a lot of this stuff isn't coming to older phones, but we'll talk about that a little later. I mean, they've denied a lot of stuff. But Alan, what was your favorite thing from the iOS announcement?
I thought the reply with message was the big thing for me. I like Passbook, but Passbook is going to be one of those things that depends on the merchants really getting on board. So there's going to be a little bit of sticking there. But reply with message, do not disturb, those things are probably the coolest, most applicable thing. For me, though, I'm looking forward to getting Siri on my iPad. I've got an iPad, like the new iPad, and I want Siri. Siri's kind of cool. I want somebody I can talk to. I work here by myself all
Alan
day.
doesn't have anyone to talk to.
I don't have anybody to talk to.
It's kind of weird that they didn't include it initially. I wonder. I'm curious why they decided to do it now and they didn't do it during the release.
I'm thinking it's probably, how Siri tends to call home a lot. Siri uses a lot of bandwidth. Siri uses a lot of processing power on Apple's side. They probably wanted to kind of throw it out there with the iPhone 4S and then slowly roll it out to other devices, see if they can handle it.
Yeah, and we do have a pretty big gap in time when the iPad 3 came out and when iOS 6 is going to come out. Because remember, iOS 6 is out for like another, 6 months, something like that?
Yeah, and it'll probably be, that's about when they'll be releasing the iPod Touches and all of that stuff. Yeah. So probably we'll see.
They're going to have some good time to...
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably see it across the whole line at that point.
Yeah.
But we've probably talked enough about Apple for now.
Well, so bouncing off this iOS thing is that Alan actually did a really great post this week.
Yeah.
Yep.
On how to get those new iOS 6 features in Android, which ones you already have and which ones you don't have. So, Alan, can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about Android, right, is that one, a lot of the users are already saying things like, well, we've already had these features forever, which is completely not the case at all. There's some things that, that are coming to iOS 6 that Android's had for a while, like turn-by-turn navigation and like priority contacts, Twitter and Facebook integration, stuff like that, right? But there's other things like do not disturb and reply with message. They're not baked into Android or every Android device the same way that they will be baked into iOS. Do not disturb you kind of get with just turning all notifications off, but you don't have a way to get that whole people are calling you over and over and over again, let this person through. There's no intelligence there. Reply with message is on a lot of phones, but I walked through a couple of apps that give you the ability to reply with a specific message or reply with a group of messages based on whether you're driving or you're in a meeting or whatever. So you can get it in Android if your phone doesn't already have it.
You can get most of these features on Android, is what you're saying, but some of them are in apps, and not all of them are as detailed as Apple's versions.
Right. We talked about Android voice control apps over and over again, and they're all great, but they're not all as great as Siri. And so you can get the same features, right? But it takes a certain kind of elegance for Apple to kind of bake it into the OS, make it something that's really easy to use and activate at the touch of a button. In Android, you can get a developer who does a really great job at building an app, but you got to install it. And then you got to hope it works with your phone, and then you got to hope it doesn't drain your battery, and there's other considerations.
Yeah. I mean, it's as always pros and cons.
Exactly.
If you're willing to wait, then you'll be fine with iOS, but a lot of us are not so patient with things like that.
And so Android can at least provide them ahead of time if there's someone innovative enough to bring it.
By the time iOS 6 comes out, we'll be on the heels of Jelly Bean coming out.
Yep.
Which, again, that'll probably take a lot of people time to get if you already have a phone. But if you may be in the market for a Nexus phone or you already have a Nexus phone, you'll get Jelly Bean pretty quickly. And so it'll be interesting to see what that has on the heels of iOS 6 coming out.
Yeah. Well, an issue I think that that probably concerns both Android and iPhone users is this death of unlimited data problem.
Oh, yes. And this was another big news story this week, is that Verizon is finally... So Verizon got rid of their unlimited data plan a while ago. Mm-hmm. But anyone who already had it was grandfathered in. But it's kind of this pseudo unlimited data plan where if you're in an area that has a lot of people and you go over a certain cap, like I think it's 3 gigs, you will be throttled.
That's the case with most providers.
It is. In fact, Verizon is one of both T-Mobile and AT&T will throttle your data if you go over your cap on your, quote, unlimited plan. T-Mobile still sells unlimited plans, but AT&T you have to be grandfathered in. Verizon's throttling isn't quite as bad as AT&T and T-Mobile's. And if you have a 4G phone, you won't be throttled, which is nice. You don't have you're still kind of on true unlimited if you have a 4G phone. Mm-hmm. Sprint has true unlimited data. You can still get it. And it's still true unlimited. They don't throttle. They're one of the only ones at this point. One of the only contract carriers. If you have a, I'm sorry, not a pay-as-you-go, but you can get a lot of other non-contract plans that may have unlimited data. Yeah. But so Verizon is taking another step to getting rid of unlimited data, and even if you're grandfathered in, starting at the end of June, the next time you buy buy a subsidized phone from Verizon, which means if you buy it for the new contract price, that's usually like $200 instead of like $600, you will lose unlimited data, and you will move to their new family share plan, which sounds cool, but it sounds like it'd be really, you have like a certain amount of gigs to share between you and the members of your family or the other people on your plan, which sounds great, but I feel like that would be really hard to monitor. I feel like, for me personally, I would rather be on a limited plan where I can have an app like Onavo on my phone, that Android app Onavo, and have it monitor all of the data that I'm using so I can always stay on top of that. The problem with the family shared data plan is that if you have an app like that, it's only monitoring what data you're using. You never know when you might go over because you don't know what everyone else in your family is using unless you're constantly logging onto Verizon's website and checking.
Yeah, it's not a very good system.
It doesn't seem like a great system. But
not at all.
It doesn't seem like a great system if you use a lot of data. That said, only like 5% of people on any given cell phone company or any for any given company are using that much data. The vast majority of people, even people who still have unlimited plans and are clinging to them, a lot of you might actually save money by getting rid of unlimited and moving to limited.
I deliberately moved off of unlimited on AT&T to go to a 2 gigabyte plan because I use a gigabyte of data.
I use no data.
It's just not an issue for most people.
I'm at home a lot of the time. I use Wi-Fi at home. I use Wi-Fi at your house. I use Wi-Fi at my girlfriend's house. Everywhere I go,
and there's free Wi-Fi all around town.
And there's free Wi-Fi everywhere. Now. Yeah, if you're a cable customer, it's just like most people just don't need that much data. And a lot of people don't realize it. Some of you may. And a lot of people these days are using their phone, tethering their phone as their home internet service, which I think is a little crazy. I don't think I could. Tethering has never been reliable enough for me to do that.
Yeah, I think for most people it's really not an issue. And there are high caps on a lot of these plans that you can buy if you really need a lot of data. Mm-hmm. But if you're using more than 10 gigabytes of cellular data, which is where Verizon caps out, then
you need to connect to more Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah. Alan, do you have unlimited or?
I do have unlimited. I got grandfathered in with an old Verizon plan when I got my 4G phone, and I'm totally one of those people that's just clinging to it just for the sake of clinging to it. I looked at the amount of bandwidth that I use, and I use like 1.5 gigs.
Yeah.
And that's on a bad one.
And it's only because you downloaded that ROM that one time.
On
data by accident.
It's awful. And I mean, I know that I look at their plans and I'm like, I could probably save like $6 if I bump my plan down. Now, I didn't do it because Verizon boots out your contract like 2 years every time you make a change or something like that. But yeah, look at it and see if you can bump your plan down because you probably can.
Yeah, it's hard to let it go though. When I got rid of mine, I'm like, I know this is practical and I'm just going to do it. But you can never have it back.
Once you let it go, you cannot get it back.
Yeah.
But so if you're on Verizon and you're worried about that, you buy a new phone now because you're not going to be able to get it unsubsidized without or you're not going to be able to get it subsidized without giving up that unlimited data.
Okay, so you also looked at this week, aside from the Verizon stuff, browser speed tests.
Oh yes, just talk about that very briefly. We did another round of our infamous browser speed tests. We're kind of at the point, I think, where for a little while we reached a point of diminishing returns, and all the browsers kind of had areas where they were stronger. Like Chrome is really fast at booting up, but it's really slow at loading tabs. The Firefox guys have been working on memory management like crazy. So actually, Firefox is by far the lowest memory user of the bunch.
Is that that's just on Windows though, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. This is just on Windows. We'll probably do a Mac test later in the year when Mountain Lion comes out. This is just for Windows for now. But so what we're really seeing is that it's the kind of new innovative features that are making the difference. So Chrome has that new pre-rendering feature that if you visited a site in that current session before already, if you're typing in the address bar, it'll show up instantaneously. Mm-hmm. So quickly, it's mind-blowing. And like for other browsers, it'll show up in a second. But Chrome just shows up so fast, and so it wins in that area. And Firefox has a new feature in Firefox 13 where when you start up the browser, if you're restoring a session with a lot of tabs, it'll only load one of those tabs, so you're not sitting there waiting for all those tabs to load, and your browser's bogged down, and you can barely use it.
That's nice.
It's pretty nice. A lot of people don't like because you will have to wait for those tabs to load later on.
I would prefer that.
But I would much rather load them one by one than having to sit there and wait 20 or 30 seconds for a browser to become usable.
Me too. I mean, that's what bothers me about Chrome particularly is it just loads everything as soon as it's requested, even if you're not looking at it. And I'd rather just didn't.
Yeah. So go check that out. Opera 12 came out on Thursday. We did the browser speed test early last week, so even if you looked at it last week, they've been updated with the new Opera 12 results. And I'm not going to tell you what the Opera 12 results are because I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do it tonight, and then it'll be there by the time this podcast releases. So go check it out if you want to be maybe surprised. I'm not sure.
All right, so we've got one more story to talk about, and it's kind of an interesting one. Whitson, why don't you just spill the beans?
So this was kind of a story that's been going around for the past week. A Reddit user posted this earlier in the week. He bought a laptop, a ThinkPad from Newegg, which is a very popular retailer for electronics and especially computer stuff. And he had it for 2 days. It worked pretty well, and he went to install Linux on it, as many of us very geeky people do. it worked fine with Linux, again, a few days, and all of a sudden he started having these problems. The Wi-Fi card stopped working, and the display was getting all flickery, and, crazy, clearly hardware problems happening. And he went to try and return it to Newegg, and Newegg said, no, we can't take this back because you've modified the operating system. They won't let you return, even if it's a hardware defect, they won't let you return a product because you installed Linux on it. Now, there was a huge uproar about this, and everyone's like, oh, Newegg sucks, I hate Newegg, whatever.
It's pretty a standard thing, right?
To deal with the PR backlash, Newegg ended up refunding this person's laptop. But they also said, and the Consumerist reported this, that they said that this was a one-time exception just because there was this angry mob of internet users talking crap about Newegg. So we were getting pretty mad about this. I thought this, as a former Linux user, I thought this was crazy, and I was so ticked off. But I kind of did a little bit more research, and it seems like this is actually pretty standard practice.
Yeah.
Now, I do think it's a little bit ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It's one thing for them to say, okay, you've now removed the recovery partition, we can't resell this product. Mm-hmm. And so, this makes sense. If you remove the recovery partition, they can't reinstall Windows on it the way it was and resell the product. You would have to give that back to the manufacturer as opposed to Newegg.
Yeah, but the fact that Linux was on it.
Well, okay, so when you install Linux, you remove the recovery partition.
Yeah, no.
Back in the days of, here's the other thing. The fact that the thing that burns me up about this is that it wasn't like they were going to resell the product as is, because it was having hardware issues up the wazoo. What they would have to fix that, and they would probably have to wipe the operating system and return it to normal anyway.
Yeah, they
even and they probably have to send it back to the manufacturer to do so because Newegg can't fix the monitor and the Wi-Fi card. They would probably send it back to the manufacturer. I don't think that this is just Newegg's return policy that's sucking. I have heard a lot of people with very bad experiences with Newegg's return policy as of late. In the past couple of years. I personally haven't. But
Amazon doesn't have this problem, though.
That's true. Amazon is just amazing.
And what's the Canadian?
Well, that's the other thing. First, in this particular situation, I think that you would have this problem with other retailers as well.
That's true.
That said, I lately discovered NCIX, which is a Canadian retailer that recently came to the U.S. And while the main thing about Newegg is that they have cheap prices and a lot of things they have free shipping. You're not necessarily going to get the free shipping at NCIX, but they do have an awesome price matching feature where you just paste in the URL of the product you want to buy on another store that has a lower price, and they will try to match it. And I did it. I bought some new computer fans last week, and I did it, and I saved like $10. Now, if I had gotten free shipping on those fans at Newegg, it probably would have evened out because I had to pay for shipping from NCIX. But if it's a good bargain hunter's tool. If you're shopping at Newegg only because it's super cheap, NCIX might be a place to try. There are also just a lot of other retailers that are a little bit lesser known, but still very reliable and have amazing customer service. I just discovered a place, I think it's called Jabtech. They supposedly have incredible customer service. Their prices on some stuff are insane. So just do some search. Instead of going to Newegg and searching for stuff, Newegg is great for reviews and everything, but then search it on Google Shopping and see what kind of prices you can find.
Alan, what do you do?
I've been known to shop at Newegg, but I remember the uproar when they started charging a 15% restocking fee for everything, 2 years ago, and that was awful. But yeah, it's all about Google Shopping for me. I'll go and I forget what it was. I think it's Price Watch that is still a really great resource for you to find the lowest price on whatever you're buying anywhere. So you can always kind of go over there and see if Newegg is the cheapest, and if you want to take the risk, or whether or not maybe even Amazon has it cheaper. Because, you'd be surprised how many computer components Amazon carries.
A lot.
And the prices
it's really good.
A lot. A lot of stuff Newegg doesn't even have.
Yeah.
I bought my last video card from Amazon.
It sounds,
me too.
It sounds like the way to go is to Google Shopping.
Yes.
And just check the prices and be diligent rather than rely on what's already been there. But
I find the reviews at Newegg are pretty great. It's still a pretty great community.
Yeah, so go there for reviews.
The last lesson to learn from this is if you get a new laptop, don't remove the recovery partition. You might be able to save yourself some hassle, and if you install Linux on it or something, just reinstall Windows from the recovery partition and then return it. Don't tell them you installed Linux. The last lesson is, if you're buying a laptop, you got to buy a laptop. If you're buying a desktop computer, Just build it yourself. You're better off. Then you can return the individual parts that don't work. You don't have to return everything at once. It's much easier RMA, and you won't have the problem of you installed Linux on this or something like that.
Mm. Well, that was a lot of news.
And then you can choose the companies that have the best customer service. That is a lot of news. We're done with news. I promise.
Let's get to the questions. So our first question comes from Philip, and he writes, so I am an original iPad user, and after the announcement of iOS 6, I am pretty bummed that I won't be getting the upgrade. That being said, I was wondering if now would be a good time to jailbreak, or should I just wait until iOS 6 releases and hope there's a jailbreak option that would work with my original iPad? I think we can answer this one pretty quickly to say that you should jailbreak now. There are a lot of really good option. First of all, the jailbreak's available for 5.1.1. It's super easy. You plug in your phone and click a button, and you can check out our always up-to-date jailbreak guide for instructions on how to do that. But on top of that, there are a lot of features in iOS 6 that you can get right now. I mean, you talked about Waze and how you're way more excited about what Apple's releasing, but Waze is a really good option. It does have community source traffic and all those sorts of things. So it works in similar ways. It's just it doesn't have like the 3D flyby and Apple's sort of design or whatever, but it still works quite well and does turn-by-turn navigation and all of that. It can also point out cop cars and other things that people report along the road. And then there's a new version coming on Wednesday, which I don't think I'm supposed to talk about what's actually in it yet, but they're adding something very cool. So I think Waze is going to have some genuine competition going forward.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm a little confused about the question briefly. He said that his iPad isn't getting the iOS 6 upgrade.
Yeah, he's not getting it. Well, for example, the turn-by-turn navigation is one of those features that is not going to be supported for older devices.
For like the iPhone 4. But he's saying he has an original iPad, which is not getting iOS. They're not getting iOS 6 at all.
That's terrible.
So there's no reason to wait to jailbreak because you won't get iOS 6. So jailbreak now. Because what do you? I don't know.
That doesn't make sense because the iPhone 4 is getting it. It's the same processor.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I don't.
To me, I don't know. I don't really care.
It might be getting it, it's not.
Regardless, jailbreak now because if you don't jailbreak now, you're going to be waiting.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, why not jailbreak? Because you can just upgrade with iOS 6 later if you want.
And, if it were.
But jailbreaks have been taking a lot longer. The last one took like 3 or 4 months, I think, and it's worth doing it now. You don't want to wait. Because you might be waiting a lot longer than you think. It may be 2013 before you jailbreak.
Yeah.
So do it now. But there are a lot of features that aren't. This is the main thing for those of you who are excited about iOS 6. You should check. We'll include a link in the show notes to a post on Mac Rumors that gives a very clear breakdown of what's coming in iOS 6 to which devices. And turn-by-turn navigation is one that's really only coming to the new iPhone
4S.
To the 4S, yeah.
iPhone 4 users are going to have a slightly toned-down version of iOS 6.
Yeah, it's basically it's what it is now, and it's better, but you have to swipe through the directions, and it doesn't talk to you.
Yeah, you want to turn-by-turn. You want to FaceTime 3G.
Yeah, which is bizarre because that does work on the iPhone 4.
There are a few other small things.
Yeah, so it's a little disappointing, but definitely. If you have an older device that is not getting a lot of the iOS 6 stuff, jailbreak because you can get a whole bunch of it now. We'll also include that post in the show notes where it goes through the features you can in iOS 6 you can get right now through jailbreaking and in some cases not. So our next question is another Mac question. We're pretty Mac heavy this week because of the Apple event. But here we go. The new MacBook Airs are out, and this is a different configuration to choose from. I was wondering which upgrades are worth the cost. What are the situations where it is worth spending the extra money on 8 gigabytes of RAM and an i7 processor and 250 gigabytes of storage? Well, we know that pretty much every Apple computer now the RAM's soldered in there. So
is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
especially the new ones.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, iFixit did a teardown on the new ones, and they're utterly unrepairable, not user service.
That ticks me off.
Yeah, well, it bothers
I'm
a lot of
gonna
people.
go yell about some stuff.
Start
After this is over.
I think the if you're worried that something might not be enough, that's the point of upgrading the stuff. I've been with a MacBook Air with now it sounds like I slept with it. I've had a MacBook Air with an i5 and i7. The little one that I have here is an i7, and the difference is pretty negligible.
Mm-hmm. The i5 is great.
Yeah, they're both fine. They're both fine processors. I would say that upgrade's not really worth it. The only reason I ended up with the i7 is because they had it in the Apple Store and I couldn't get it an i5. Like, they just have the top configuration.
Oh, weird.
And I was impatient, so I just got it.
I'd say maybe if you're video editing, the i7 might be better. If you're doing something that's really CPU intensive.
Well, it's still very negligible.
I mean, it seems like there's not a huge difference.
It's like that. I mean, I don't think anyone will notice in any situation.
The RAM, on the other hand, is a little bit... 4 gigabytes of RAM is more than enough for me on a MacBook Air.
Yeah, I've been fine with it.
Unless you're running a virtual machine.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and also with the future coming, as it tends to, there, you might want the 8 gigabytes of RAM. I think you should always go with the 256 because I think that's the sweet spot.
256 for the hard drive, yeah.
Yeah, so if there's anything to upgrade, it's that. RAM is really, if you're going to be doing anything. I mean, you through Apple, it's not necessarily, but...
Oh, I know. And you can't upgrade it yourself.
Yeah, but it's not. It seems like not a bad deal. I wouldn't go for the processor. Alan, what do you think?
I wish I had a table to flip.
If you're getting one of the new Retina Macs, I would probably tell the person, like, if they've got the budget to bump up the RAM and the storage, then go for it because you're not going to be able to change those things later. Mm-hmm. But
what about the MacBook Airs?
What about the what?
What about the MacBook Airs? I think that's what he's asking.
Oh, the MacBook Airs. In that case, because you can make some changes there. I can't see any reason to go with an i7 and a MacBook Air, even if you're doing gaming or like you're going to install Windows and do some crazy stuff on it. And 256 gigs in a solid state is more than fine.
Would you go for the 4 or the 8 on the RAM?
Probably 4. I mean, because at least with the MacBook Air, if you want to upgrade to 8 gigs, you can later.
I don't think you can anymore, though. I think that's the problem.
I still can't think of any reason why you'd really need 8 gigs of RAM. I mean,
I can't think of any reason you would game on a MacBook Air.
Yeah.
Did you just suggest gaming on a MacBook Air, Alan?
I played games on it, but not the kind of games most people play.
Yeah, I played Team Fortress 2, and I think that's about all I can push it to do.
Hey, man, Diablo 3's out for Mac, so...
Really? What is?
Diablo 3. Oh. Dot just hasn't played a video game since 1994, so don't...
I haven't played any video games other people play since 1994. I've played, like, World of Goo and Braid.
Okay.
Hey, man, Apple makes great gaming laptops. You just have to install Windows.
Yeah.
Unless you play Blizzard games, in which case you're good.
Okay, so we've got... what's our next question? You want to grab that one?
Yeah, so... this reader says, I'm interested in setting up a cheap media center. I've been thinking about giving Google TV a try, though I do like how XBMC is so customizable and how you can upgrade your box whenever you want. Which would you recommend? You actually did a post.
We've got like a nice divide between us here.
So this is where Dotchus and I really differ, and we actually fight about it a lot.
No, we don't.
Fist fights, actually. Him and me.
No, that's not over Google TV. I just like punching you in the face.
Dotchus is a big Google TV fan. He just wrote a post about this last week. And actually, I admit Google TV is pretty cool.
I was surprised that I liked it. I bought the TV because I thought the TV looked cool. And it had Google TV built into it. And then I found out I could install Plex and Netflix and other video streaming apps. There's even something that runs AirPlay. There's an app called Airtight, which will put an AirPlay server on your television. And you can just send iOS stuff to that. So it's really great if you want anyone to be able to stream things, you can plug in via USB to the Google TV box or to an integrated TV set. But I discovered that Plex was so great because of this, and I now run Plex on my homemade media server, but I also run it on the Google TV, and it's pretty similar. And it's just basically you install it like you would on an Android phone, and it works.
Yeah, so if you don't know, Plex is actually a fork of XBMC. It's very similar to XBMC, but a little bit less customizable, I think.
I think it's a little less customizable, but it has other features like
streaming,
easy streaming. And Alan, you're like kind of the Plex expert, so where does Plex differ from XBMC?
Well, the big thing for me is that it does transcoding on the fly, right? So I can play like anything I want. And I can stream it to my phone when I'm out and about. And I have to pay a little money for the app, but it doesn't matter what file type it is. I can view it, and it doesn't. And Plex will handle that for me. It's a little bit more kind of hands off. If you want the kind of media center where you don't want to fiddle with it too much, Plex is a great option, and it's great for pulling all your media all over from other computers. But I didn't know it was baked into Google TV. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great, and it's also like if you have an Android or iPad, tablet, then you can actually run Plex on there, and you can kind of have your media center to go. So it's Plex is just, I think, the easiest way to kind of transport everything around.
Yeah. And we've done a lot of posts on that, so you can check the show notes for that. And we'll also link to my ultimate XBMC guide, which just, and so I'm not even going to talk about it that much now, because you just go look at this article and you will see the sheer amount of crap you can do with XBMC. It's insane. It's like you say, it's incredibly customizable. You can upgrade your box. You have complete control over your media center, which is fantastic. But it also takes a lot of work, and it can be kind of frustrating sometimes, depending on how you build your box. You need to take some care in the parts you choose, and in how you set things up, even the operating system you use, if you're not just using XBMC Live. So go look at that. Think about what you really want from your media center. Honestly,
the other thing is
we don't actually fight. Well, how much is like a Google TV unit at this point?
$150.
Yes. Okay. So Google TV is going to be a lot cheaper too, because building your own XBMC box is going to be at least $200 probably. Probably more. Mine was like $400.
You can probably get a really cheap used Google TV box too,
Yeah.
because those are like no one really wants them. It started out as such a convoluted mess, and
Yeah, it did.
they advertised
It really did.
all the wrong things. It's like the great thing about Google TV is it's apps on your television. You can go on your computer and say, I want this app.
But I'm not really sure that's what it really was when it came out.
Well,
I don't think they had the apps to support that argument.
It was search on your TV, but
yeah.
but that doesn't even really work very well.
So go look at both of those. They're honestly both fantastic options. It's really just a personal preference thing, and I understand it's a tough choice.
Well, I think it's I think that the choice is really like, do you want to be able to do whatever you want, or do you want something that you can rely on to do some things? I mean, because XBMC, as great as it is, it has its issues from time to time, and there is maintenance that you have to take care of. But you created a media center where it does way more than the Google TV does. Like you have video games on it.
I play video games.
That's not something I can do really.
Yeah. The question is, do you want to have a media center where you can do everything, or do you want to have a life?
Yeah.
That's the real question.
That is There have been moments
where I feel like I have no life.
I feel like your media center woes at times have justified my decision.
Yep, they have. All right, last question isn't really a question, but Eric from Montreal emailed us about a question we had last time about whether you could build an iPod out of spare parts.
And he did it.
Unfortunately, he did it a while ago. He didn't really have pictures, and he didn't. I don't think he did the whole thing. What he says was, a few years ago, I built an iPod Classic 160 gigabyte from parts I bought off eBay. I didn't take pictures, unfortunately, but I had an early netbook with a slow and tiny 4 gigabyte flash drive. So he updated that with an iPod hard drive.
Yeah, well, he got the wrong drive.
Sorry, he got the wrong drive. Only ordered the wrong one. The plugs didn't match up anymore. So I had a drive and nothing to do with it. Rather than just chuck it, I checked the iFixit website for how to put an iPod together, checked on eBay to see if I could get all the parts, and I spent a nice afternoon with my dad assembling it, and it worked. He says he didn't really total up how much it cost, but it was probably a bit more than $200. So there wasn't a huge savings, but it was kind of like a fun project. Yeah. And at this point, if you own... if you have owned an iPod, you probably own like 10 iPods at this point. If you've been keeping up with iPods, so
you might have some parts lying around anyway.
Yeah. You either have parts lying around for broken ones, or the only reason you would really do this is as a fun project.
Yeah. He also said that you might be able to save some money. More,
yeah, but not
the parts might be a little cheaper than they were.
Yes, and remember, it's going to take you time. So whether $50 is worth an entire afternoon of building it, but it's also fun to build. So.
Yeah, you're doing it because you want to, not because it's...
Yes, not because it's cheaper. So, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, so how about some downloads?
Let's do some downloads. All right, downloads.
Yeah.
Let's start with Windows.
We have something to say about Windows downloads.
No new... Here's the thing. I feel like there are no new Windows downloads just coming out all the time anymore.
The last 5 weeks have been pretty barren.
And I would argue it's been even longer than that. And a lot of people, we get some criticism from time to time that we talk about a lot more Apple or, iOS or
especially today
Mac downloads. But I feel like the Mac developer community is just bustling right now, and they're busting out a lot of little cool apps, and not that much stuff is happening over Windows. Yeah. Granted, we've had the same version of Windows for much longer than we've had this version of OS 10. Things like that.
But that's no reason people shouldn't be developing for it.
But I'm just saying, I wish there were more cool Windows downloads out right now that were coming out regularly, but we're just not really seeing them. If you see cool ones, send them into tips@lifehacker.com or put them in our tips thread. We would love to find more awesome Windows downloads. We're just not seeing them.
And developers, develop.
Get off your butts. Develop something cool.
Remember the words of Steve Ballmer: developers. And
on that note,
never forget that.
We do have a Windows download this week. I'm just going to go to an old one because I've been playing with it a little bit recently, and that is MSI Afterburner. Or if you're an EVGA fan, you can use EVGA Precision, which is the exact same thing. It's essentially a tool for easy overclocking of your video card. So this is really for gamers. If you're a gamer, I don't want to put a number on how much this will increase your gaming performance, but the number is about 10%. And I know this because we tested it. It's going to be a little bit different for every card. It's going to be a little different for every machine, but I got a pretty solid 10% boost out of my gaming. That is 10% in a benchmark program like 3D Mark when I overclock my video card. MSI Afterburner makes it extremely easy. We have a guide on how to do it. Go check it out if you're looking to boost your gaming performance. It's not nearly as difficult or risky as overclocking your processor. As long as you have a good cooler on your card, which doesn't mean you need a third-party one. As long as you have a good card, it's easy to do. Get a couple more frames per second out of Skyrim or Diablo 3 or whatever it is you're playing.
Cool.
Moving on.
So next we've got, Multimon for Mac?
Yeah, so Multimon's a Mac application that kind of brings a lot of the really cool features of Windows' multi-monitor support to Mac OS. So it's $10, so that's kind of a bitter pill to swallow, but at the same time, it will automatically resize windows for you when you move them from monitor to monitor. It gives you hotkeys to move a monitor or a window on one monitor over to another one, and it will put your Mac's menu bar on all of your displays. So that's kind of the big cool thing because your other monitors don't have menu bars. But there's a free option called Second Bar that's been abandoned that gives you the menu bars. But it's a pretty cool tool that kind of brings a lot of that. If you have more than one monitor for your Mac, then you really need an app that can kind of move your windows around if you work with them all the time.
And I feel like if you have a second monitor, you know how painful it is that operating systems just don't support it that well. And $10 is a small price to pay. Let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, nowadays we're kind of at that $1 app point, so it
seems big, but it's really not. When you look at, especially with things on Windows, like Display Fusion is what, like $30 or $40 or something? Or 20, 25.
I bought the Humble Indie bundle the other day for $15, and it's variable pay, and I could have paid less, and I was thinking, oh, this seems like a lot, and I'm getting 8 games or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I spent more on dinner recently.
And when you use an app every day, and when it just changes your productivity that much,
it's totally worth it.
Totally worth it.
Yeah.
All right.
So for iOS and actually Android too, we have what is it called? Aviary. I don't know. I only wrote about it yesterday. The Aviary is a photo editor, and it's been a long time favorite for people who want to edit their photos on the web. It's actually, you can do a lot of stuff you do in Photoshop for free in Aviary on the web. The mobile app is not quite so robust, but it does have a lot of really cool features. It's a free mobile image editor, and there's some in-app purchases like getting extra effects a la Instagram. Or getting sticker packs. Those can cost $1 a piece or whatever, but most of the image editing tools like removing blemishes, fixing red eye, brightening a dark photo, fixing backlight, all the kind of things that you would generally want to do with an image is to kind of fix it up, especially on a phone when those images don't always come out so well. You can do an Aviary. It doesn't cost anything. You just download it. It's Aviary Photo Editor. It's free on Google Play and iTunes App Store.
Awesome. Lastly, Track 8. Alan?
Yeah, Track 8 came out for the iPhone this week. We've loved it for the iPad for a while now, but it's this gorgeous Metro-inspired music player. It just takes over your whole display. It downloads huge, like high-resolution images of your artists in the background, pulls all their data down from Last.fm, and it's a lot of fun it kind of makes listening to your music more fun. So you can kind of flip around your playlists and things, and it supports iTunes Match, so you can pull your music down from iCloud.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's a pretty rad app, and it's $1.99 for the iPad, and it's $1.99 for the iPhone. I think it's
so it's not a universal app.
No, it is a universal app.
Okay, so it's $1.99 to get the app for both platforms.
That's a good deal.
That's a good deal. And it is I use it on my iPad and I love it. I probably won't use it on my iPhone because I am in love with Panamp. Yeah. Just like so in love with Panamp, I can't even stand it.
He doesn't stop talking about
I never stop talking about it. But Track 8 on the iPad is awesome. So no matter what kind of device you have, go check it out. It is gorgeous.
Cool. Well, that's all we've got for today.
That is all we've got for today. Did you say that like we didn't have a lot to talk about?
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with
hopefully a shorter show.
Stuff. Yeah.
But
thanks for joining us and enduring the long Apple talk. See you next week. If you'd like to ask us a question, send an email to tips+asklhshow@lifehacker.com. Alternatively, leave us a message at 347-687-8109. Try to keep your questions to a few sentences or 30 seconds so we can keep the show moving quickly. And thanks for listening, watching, or however else you get this podcast from the internet to your brain. This episode was recorded in Los Angeles, California by the Lifehacker staff and edited into a more consumable form by Kyle J. Norris. We'd also like to thank all the people who contributed images to our podcast to help make it look extra nice. Okay, we have to do our news robot dance or whatever. And news.